Okay, so this is a little bit different than what I've been up to lately, right? But it's still in the realm of a K-pop survival series, right? And I thought that this was just really interesting as maybe like a case study, right? Let's call it that. There is a series from about a year ago, and it was held by MBC, right? And it was called My Teenage Girl. I recently stumbled across clips and was like, oh, here's another series. When I had downtime, or when I was sick and sort of recovering, I wasn't doing videos, I started watching this series and also the Hybe Are You Next series, which is really good. I'm just gonna watch those for fun, right? But I highly recommend them if you haven't checked them out. The Hybe one particularly is really, really good, man. It's they got some high trainee levels over there. Now this series, right, there was this clip that I saw posted. It's got they have Soyeon from G Idol as one of the judges on the panel, right? But the way that this survival series was set up was they selected they had some trainees, some MBC trainees, and from all different levels, all different styles and everything, right? As is normally the case. But the those who were selected, right, would go on to have this opportunity here, which is they get to put on a stage, and what you see right now is this is the actual stage here, and this giant projector screen, they're behind it, right? And there's an audience vote, right? They have to get 75% of the audience to vote in, and when they do, this giant projector thing opens up, and then they're there performing in front of the live audience and the judges. The audience vote is the first part. This is the first thing they have to pass, and then after that, the judges on the panel, they do an assessment, and if each contestant gets judged individually by the panel, and if they get at least 3 of the 4 judges to vote for them, then they get to go on and continue in the series, right, towards debuting and everything. Now, this was just interesting. I saw it because it was like, Soyeon gets furious, right, after watching the trainees' performance, and I was like, oh, wow. Soyeon, of course, she's an example of like a music and performance prodigy. Okay, she's kind of brilliant. You know what I mean? Like, just basically is the thing. So everybody, like, when she has a take on something, it's like it has value, right? Like it means something. And when I saw this, I was like really kind of like surprised. I was like, wow, what could do that? What could make Soyeon get upset, right? Like, about a performance, like. And so I thought I'd watch the clip. Now I'm trying to just accomplish this video before the next episode of A2K starts, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with their performance, and I won't play the whole thing, right? You'll get an understanding like fairly quickly of what's going on here. They have the parents watching in the audience. That's who they're cutting to.
이게 조회수 제일 잘 나올 것 같아. 영상 올라가면.
And you can already see,
소연이 표정 봐. 소연 씨.
look at Soyeon's face, right? Now, okay, so the thing is this. You see the audience, right? Now, let me see if I can find... It's somewhere. Ah, here we go. Look, see? In other words, they make it, right? The audience passes them right at the... If they kind of came in clutch with it, right? But, okay, so an audience doesn't have the same level of like technical understanding, right? They're fans and they're familiar with a certain, you know, concept. They understand that it's charming talent that's cute and sings and dances and makes you feel good, right? An audience is going to be based on emotion. That's what they're gonna go off of, right? Now, we saw some of the performance. Nonstop, I believe, is an Oh My Girl song. It's a great song for these two, right? Like I would agree with the pick, right? I said, okay, that's cute. It really is, right? You guys do that song, and it's cute. It's a cute song. It's bright. It's bubbly. You know, it's got like the right vibe, right? Let me see. Let me see if I can find... Oh, yeah, here we go. So...
이 문이 열렸을 때 비대면 평가하시는 분들이 혹시 소리가 안 들렸나? 이렇게 생각했어요.
So, you know, she's saying the gates open and were you guys like not able to hear or were you not listening? But again, the audience goes off emotion.
오늘 본 모든 무대 중에 솔직히 화도 안 날
So
정도로 좀
this was the
최악이었어요.
worst performance
솔직히 화도 안
they've
날
seen,
정도로
that
좀
Soyeon has
최악이었어요.
seen all day, and she can't even get mad at it, you know? Like she's like,
실력이 좋은 친구들도
Soyeon's been put in, all the judges have been put in a really tough spot here because and there's some additional context, right, that because when they clip this, you're only seeing this performance, which is understandable. It's concise, it makes sense, right? But the performance before this is important, right? It's important to understand what happened. So there was another two-piece group, right? Now these girls are a little bit older. They've been training for a little bit longer, and they have a very unique take. They have a very unique stage. As you can see, this is the main dancer right here, Yerim. She plays the piano very well. The other girl is the main vocal, and they're kind of like breaking the mold a little bit. They're not your typical type of what you would see in a K-pop girl group, right? But are they talented? Yes.
예림언니 피아노 잘 치네.
See? They have musicality. They understand this. You know what I'm saying? It's a really interesting performance. It really is. Right? Now they're going to transition into their choreography and singing, right?
Oh my.
You see,
how do we fall apart faster than a hairpin trigger? Don't you say it, don't you say it. One breath, it'll just break it. Just shut your mouth and run me like a river. Shut your mouth, baby, stand and deliver. Holy hands out of my
우와 진짜 무대 보는 것 같아.
like a river, like a river.
now Yerim can sing too. she dances very well. She can sing. Now, okay, so just right, so we have a little bit to compare here. You can already see the difference in the training level. Now, of course, they're older, right? They've had more time, you know what I'm saying? And that's very important. Let me see. Okay. Basically, the audience didn't pass them, right? They didn't get the 75%. So the judges panel didn't get to do anything. They're not even up for evaluation by Soyeon and the other judges, right? This stage happens right before the the two girls, right? Right before they go on stage. And so you see the audience, which is moved by emotion, they saw this other interesting, different type of act, and they didn't really know what to make of it. You know what I'm saying? That's why they didn't vote with it's the sort of confidence, right? Like they were like, this isn't really a girl group, right? Like this is something else. Like they're trying to do something else. That's what I gather anyway. That's my interpretation of it. Then, because I believe when, you know, this group didn't make it through. Let me see if I can.
좀 놀랬습니다. 네.
아니 이게 너무 당황스러운 게 언택트 평가단이 보는 그 시각이 저희가 보는 시각하고 좀 다르다라는 거를
the audience
느꼈어요.
perspective is different from theirs, right?
이게 현재 온도인 것 같기도 해요.
But the
다들 놀라지
temperature
않으세요?
of the current public, in other words, they're general fans who don't have a technical understanding, and they're being swayed by their emotions to make a
춤을 너무
decision.
잘 추는데
어.
보이스의
Great
파워도 굉장히
dancers,
좋고 가창력도
powerful
좋고
vocals,
맞아요.
right?
장점이 많았어요.
I think because I can't remember. I think
되게
Soyeon
마음에 안 좋다.
says that the audience should be a little bit more responsible with their voting, right? Now, when you take that into consideration, the next group is these two little girls who are cute and adorable, and they're like trying, you know. That is already going to have an emotional impact on an audience, and it's much more familiar, right? They know the song, they know "Oh My Girl," they know, you know what I'm saying. So, and they're already feeling a little bit of pressure at this point. They're like, oh, we didn't vote for the last group, so we have to vote for this group now. We have, there's no way we can't, right? And let it be to the judges, right? Let's vote them through, and then the judges can decide, right? So in between these two acts and what was going on with them, with this whole setup, you know, ultimately, like I feel for this is Yeso and Sujin, right? The two girls. Now, because it's not really their fault, okay? I believe that they were kind of really set up to fail, in other words, right? And they know Sojin here and the other girl, I think her name is Yeso. They know that they haven't trained as much. They get it. They know, like, they're at least self-aware enough, right? And they can look at all the other girls and go, wow, they're better, right? They sing better, they dance better, and all this other stuff. And so I just thought, you know, it's interesting, right? Because check this out. The interim evaluation. I don't know. I think there's any indication of how much time was between this and then the actual performance stage, right?
말도 안 되잖아 끝이 야야야야 말도 안 되잖아 끝이
Now look at them, right? You can tell what they're thinking, right? The mothers watching, the parents watching them. It's cute. They're cute. Okay, now hold on, let me see. Where's the?
갖고는 근데 안 된다는 거 본인들도
Okay.
알고.
자꾸 떨어져 저거. 아니 너 꿋꿋하게 너무 귀여워.
수고했어요. 이 정도 갖고는 근데 안 된다는 거
Right, you
본인들도
do know this isn't
알고
good
있지.
enough,
이 정도
right?
갖고는 근데 안 된다는 거 본인들도 알고 있지.
They're
왜냐면은
saying,
나는
yeah, okay, we get it. And I believe they do.
무슨 노래
If I'm now, honestly, the choreography wasn't like, it wasn't there, but it wasn't as if they were flailing around without any idea of what they were doing. I think the choreography was the strongest point of their performance, right? But the vocals were not there. Some very fundamental things too, right? Things that even I could get them closer than that, right? I could teach them, just like JYP says with scale training, right? Well, there's vocalises, there's other things you do, but they really need to understand pitch, and they really need to understand, they need to have an idea in their heads of what the pitches sound like without singing them or without hearing them being played. And some of it they do. It's not as if they're completely tone deaf, because there are some parts where they go way up in pitch, right? But they don't have a solid enough content, and you can tell. I can tell this just from watching, right? And again, if let's say this was like 2 or 3 weeks or a month or whatever before they took the stage, right? If I'm in their seats right now, right, the ones who are evaluating this, I'm gonna say, yes, you need to work on it. You need to work on the vocals. You need to work on your rhythm. Choreography is not awful, but you definitely want to work on that more, because they have a lot of charm, right? They're very fun to watch. They're adorable and precocious and all this, so they have that in the bucket already. But they need some technical development, right? That's basically what it is. And if I'm one of these, trainers making this evaluation now, because they've been selected for this show ahead of time, I'm going to say, work on these things. If you need help, let me know. I'll help you out, right? I'll do what I can to help you get there. But I'm going to say maybe 2 days or 3 days out from when you're supposed to go on stage, we're going to do this again. And you're going to do this performance, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do another evaluation. And if there's not enough improvement in between now and then, you can't go out on stage. You just can't do it, man. And you're not prepared, right? Because it's really rough, dude, because it's not their fault. The girls, they go through this, and at the end, it's just very difficult, man. It's like this was
전수현 선생님.
a rough one to watch, man. And the girls are smart enough to know, right? These little girls are smart enough to understand what it is, right? And I don't know if they got some pretty harsh critique. They were told that everything's just kind of like a mess here. And the judges were in a place where they really couldn't do anything. And so neither one of them got any votes at all. That's like, it feels bad to watch it. Imagine having to go through it. What would have been better? And tell me if I'm wrong. Well, I don't think I'm wrong though. What would have been better? To have them go through this, right? Or as a trainer, as an instructor, to handle it like I said, and if they're not there, just be real with them and say, look, you're very young, you've got a lot of time, give it another year. Come back next year. You're not prepared for it this time around. It's a big opportunity. I'd be doing you wrong if I let you go out there. Practice for another year. Develop your singing. Sharpen up your choreography. Develop it. See how good you can get in a year's time. It'll fly by faster than you think, especially if you're really working. It's going to be like that, and then you'll be, up for another opportunity afterwards, right? But because I watch a lot of these series and a lot of the JYP, there are certain stages, certain contestants and things, when they go up and they do a stage and you think, oh wow, that was really good, and then you hear JYP say it was good but it wasn't great, or your dancing is terrific but the vocals, they're not where they need to be yet, or vice versa, your vocals are amazing but the dance, it's not quite there yet, right? If these girls were practiced and trained enough to have that kind of stage, well then, okay, that's fair, right? Like that would have been a solid attempt and a legitimate sort of critique and evaluation, right? At least you worked really hard at it and were as prepared as you could be, right? And the thing is, and I feel for both groups too, right? For the group that went on before this, right? The other two-piece, right? And their very interesting and unique approach to this, right? Because they were good. They were technically very sound, right? They had all the fundamentals down very solid, right? And so ultimately the incorporation of the audience vote really sort of mired this whole thing up, you know what I mean? It made it very messy, because again, the audience, pure emotion. Sure, I'm sure there's some people in the audience who have a little bit of a background, a little bit of a technical understanding of things, but that's not everybody in this sample group that you've got for an audience, right? So I think it's two things, right? Is that the selection process, and it should have been a little bit more diligent, perhaps the trainers should have taken a little bit more responsibility, as but then again, I don't know how all that works. I don't know the dynamics of it. I don't know. They may because they might have done exactly what I said. They might have been a couple of days before, do it again. And there is a little bit of improvement in the choreography between the interim evaluation and the stage. Their movements are not awful. They're not terrible, right? They understand that part at least. And maybe it was nerves, but they really didn't project their vocals enough, right? The pitch and the rhythm were not there, and they didn't have enough air behind it to really sing these parts out. It was almost hard to hear, and they did better as far as their projection in the interim evaluation. So I think that nerves really got to them, man, and who could blame them, because they weren't prepared for this, right? You know what I mean? And ultimately, oh man, like I said, I feel for both of the groups. It's a shame for both groups, right? They had to go through this. The first group being so good and not being able to make it through, and then these two little girls having to deal with the fallout of all when this went way off course. They were really just left in a position to have to take all of that onto themselves, right? And I don't know, you know, it would take some work to figure out where they are now, both of these, you know, groups, and what it is that they're up to. Because, you know, I would hope that they didn't give up. You know what I'm saying? Like, but man, it's rough, isn't it? Like to want to come back and do this again or anything like it, you know? I just think, man, what a shame, you know, what a shame. I think, you know, and in other words, if these two hadn't been allowed to go through and, you know, get, you know, all this avalanche of like negative energy and response and everything, just a really heavy experience, right? Well, then you have the group before them, and it wouldn't be so bad, right? And the judging panel wouldn't have been put into this situation either. You can honestly say that the previous group did their best. They went out there, they put on a great performance. They could not sway this audience. And okay, that's fair enough, right? It becomes a really big mess when it continues on. And because there were several, this is like the first episode or the first day of these evaluations, and there's a ton of stages that go on. I mean, there's a lot of them, dude. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, all kinds of groups doing all kinds of things. And I just think it could have been a much smoother experience all around if perhaps some more diligence had been taken on a part of the trainers, you know, and the whoever did the selection for who was going to get the stage. But man, I just thought that this was like a really interesting case. It's really the first time I've seen something like this, you know, and from my perspective here, I've seen, you know, you can find compilations of like the worst American Idol auditions, and you'll hear vocal stuff like this. You'll hear people who just can't sing, right? That's what it is, right? This is really the first time that I've seen something like this on one of these shows. And so it's, you know, I've saw this like maybe about a week ago, or so, you know, maybe a little less. It's been a few days, but it's just it's been on my mind because, you know, I was just like, wow, this is, I'm having trouble understanding how this even happened, right? But I don't know. There's a lot I don't know. There's a lot of information, a lot of context that I don't have. I just know what I know, and that's kind of my take on it at this point, right? I don't know. Am I wrong? Or do you see where I'm coming from with this, right? This NBC series, not to knock the company or whatever, because I'm not very familiar. I was like, NBC? Who's NBC? Like, what, you know what I mean? I'm sure I've seen groups that are under their company name or whatever. But it just, I was like, okay, well, let me see what they're, and this whole thing has an insane pace to it, man. I mean, you know, what happens is they show up to the building and they go into the office and they speak to the company, the head of the company, right? And they sit on these chairs, and then she goes, okay, you're on, and then it's like a stage, a platform that just raises up, right? And they go up to the next floor, and, you know, they make their stage entrance like that. I mean, it's a meat grinder of a process here. The way this one is set up, I mean, you are just put through like Play-Doh and the Play-Doh factory. You're just like it's quite fascinating, you know. But I think inevitably this created one of these really hard situations to actually watch, you know what I mean? As I really felt quite gutted for both of these groups, you know what I mean? But especially for these two, because I think this could have been avoided, and I think they could have been done better and set up for success. as opposed to being set up for failure, in my opinion. You know what I mean? That's just based off of what I know. But I hope both groups don't give up, because there's a ton of potential that's there. Certainly the first group should not give up. What they're trying to do is very interesting and original, and they can end up creating a whole new space, right, within the sort of girl group side of the industry. And these two, they have so much time, they have so much charm, they have cuteness, they have like half of what you need. They've got it, or let's say a third, right? But they have time, so they could develop the rest of it. And this experience was probably super heavy, and I don't know if they'll be motivated to continue on in pursuit of it, which is really sad. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I thought this was like really interesting though. So I don't know. Let me know if I am way off, but I don't think I am. I think I called this pretty fairly. Yeah. Okay, so on to the continuation of A2K.